Okay, I think we're live. Hopefully, people can confirm in the chat here. Welcome everyone to Read Out. Joining me today is only Christian and myself here. So John is traveling, and we are going to have a stream later this week. But at the moment, it's just us. Um, but I didn't want to miss our regularly scheduled time, so I thought we would hop on and just have a little open discussion. Something of an ask me anything, ask Christian anything, as well as I wanted to walk through some of the resources that I've shared in the past, just in terms of some of the names, and I've shared a link to kind of what I call my works cited, just a bunch of things that I've read and lectures that I've studied. But I wanted to provide sort of an organized list of where I would start if anyone is interested in pursuing a better understanding of philosophy and a better understanding of church history. Either one of those, and kind of those really two separate categories. So we'll probably create two different columns. But I thought it'd be helpful just to go through the resources that I've shared and organize them in terms of sort of most accessible to perhaps more advanced. I also see that Jay Dyer just went live, so that could be interesting to join if we have time or
You can hop on, yeah.
have an interest in that, depending on what kind of topic he's going into. Um, all right. Thanks for those of you who are here with us. Please confirm in the chat that you can hear us and that we're actually live, because we don't know what we're
Yeah,
doing.
we're live.
Um,
We're live. Yeah.
all righty. Reform Renegade says, "Where do you get your ideas?" Are
A
you
dream.
are you talking about my crazy ideas? Um, yeah, mostly in crazy fever dreams.
Yep.
No, I mean I'd say that I have developed my way of thinking over, I don't know, 10 years of being somewhat politically active. Um, no, you're not live. Can't hear anything.
We could say anything
Um,
we want now.
um, and I kind of went through the typical libertarian in my 20s, moving more conservative over time, progression that you kind of see typically take place. Uh, but I don't really think that I have much to add to the political commentary. Um, Most of my political ideas, I tend to um, filter through my theological and philosophical uh, ideas, but otherwise, unless it has a particular um, point of contact, uh, I'm pretty satisfied with some of the mainstream uh, conservative, outright conservative commentators. I like the variety at the Daily Wire. You generally get a good mix of folks. You get the Catholics, you get the Jews, you get even one or two Protestants, depending on who you're listening to. It's where I get most of my news from, or my commentary, really, although news as well. And then most of my other time is spent diving into the more philosophical and theological stuff, because that's what really interests me, and that's where I think that I can actually contribute. Christian, where do you get most of your ideas from?
It's actually kind of a funny story, but as you know, I've always been Catholic, but I didn't start taking it seriously up until a couple years ago. I was actually dating a Lutheran girl. It was probably about like, I don't know, year and a half ago or so, and she would just like kind of constantly always undermine me being Catholic. So obviously it didn't end up working out, but after that ended, I was like, you know what? I'm really curious now. I'm being able to kind of defend Catholicism and just for my own sake know the ins and outs of my religion more. So that's
Right.
kind of what led me down the rabbit hole, and I just kind of ordered a bunch of books, started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I mean, 2 millennia of history is it's a lot to go through, and it's pretty fascinating. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what led me down the rabbit hole. Yeah,
Very good.
but yeah,
Um, all right. Let's see. Jay is still in his intro here. Let
um,
me.
politically, politically though, I think I've kind of gone through the same journey you have. I was brought up in a conservative household, but kind of started going down the libertarian path as well. But I've kind of gone away from that idea. I'm definitely far more right wing now than I am libertarian for sure.
So what does that mean to you? Because I think everyone has a different
Sure.
definition of what libertarian even means, and that's
Well,
kind of
what's
funny
the
to
old
me
saying?
because
Like,
you get
I want the gays to have machine guns protect their pot farms. What is that? Like the old adage of libertarians, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Or the more sanitized version is, I guess, some form of I'll, I may not agree with you, but I'll die for your right to say whatever you want.
Hmm.
Which is actually there's still some validity to that, but it can be a little bit overblown. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that yeah, to me, like libertarianism is like it's Milton Friedman. It's Milton Friedman economics, a little bit of Thomas Sowell, but very just laissez-faire government, as minimalist a government as you can get. Um, and what I've seen sort of in Friends is it tends towards more like the smaller and smaller the government. It's almost like there's no government too small, and it really starts to sound a lot more like anarchism, which I think is completely just naive at best. And I
Yeah.
think that's what really makes me turn me in the other direction in terms of going more conservative is realizing that no, we need a political value of prudence and actually using political power because someone's going to use it, so it might as well be the good guys, and
Hmm.
we can do so through prudent action rather than simply trying to always take what we perceive as the moral high ground, which is basically just not using any government power at all and trying to shrink the government. Um, yeah, I think in the end it ends up being fruitless, and you get trampled over by people that are actually willing to wield political power. Um,
Yeah. Well, not only that, you need infrastructure as well. You need a defense system. You need a military. You need
yeah,
to be able to fund that military. You need to build infrastructure for your cities. Roads, towns,
exactly.
dams, stuff like that.
Well, and so there's this is something that I also think is funny is you'll talk depending on who you're talking to in terms of the libertarian camp. If they go more extreme, they start to forget what, as I understand, is basic economics, where we have there's a quadrant of goods, right? You have your um, public, your private, your club goods, and your natural resources. I think are the four blocks, but essentially it's all about exclusivity and uh, externalities. I believe I'm trying to think what the quadrant is exactly, but basically you've got your um, private goods, which can be let's see, it's not externalities. But it's basic economics, and basically it creates an even libertarian justification for things like roads and public works projects because there is this category of public goods which the government needs to work on, and that to me that's kind of the distinction between a libertarian and an anarchist is the anarchists start to deny even the legitimacy of um, public goods as being an economic category. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this quadrant? Did
I,
you ever take an economics class?
no, I did not. But I mean, the means of funding that system, I guess, is debatable because we funded our entire country without income tax. Was it 1918? Which amendment was it that came around that brought income tax, federal income tax, into the equation? So
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple ways of doing it. So
Oh, for sure, for sure. All right, here we
yeah.
go. I'm just gonna type this in, share my screen.
Which amendment was it?
All right, let's see if I can find that quadrant here.
16th Amendment, ratified in 1913. Okay.
Okay, so it's exclusivity and rivalry. So um, these two categories create this quadrant where you have private goods are both excludable, you can keep other people from them, and there's a rivalry for them, meaning that when I have one, you don't have that same thing. Um, versus like oxygen. Me breathing doesn't really deprive you of breathing, and
Mhm.
neither can I exclude you from breathing. So clean air or air is a public good. Um, and then club goods are ones that are non-rivalrous, but they are excludable. So that would be like a subscription service where all you had to do is provide access to. Oops, what happened? Go back. All you have to do is provide access to someone in order to be able to use the good. It doesn't really take away access. Like if you get a subscription to Spotify, it doesn't limit my subscription to Spotify. So
Mhm.
there's no rivalry there. However, you can exclude people. You can just keep them from getting access to it. And so you are able to charge economically. And so the free market can have a role there. Um, Common goods would be, or natural resources, what they're sometimes called, these things that are not really excludable, but they are rivalrous. So, like national parks, things that kind of common areas, like if you have a neighborhood park, um, it is, if you have, you know, five families there, it's too crowded, and so you don't really actually get your enjoyment out of the park. But you can't really just keep the other people from enjoying it, and so there is some rivalry, but you're not really able to exclude people. There are plenty of goods that fall into that category, and then finally you have the goods that are both non-rivalrous and non-excludable, and those are the ones that you really want to be run by the government because otherwise you'll get the free rider problem, as it's called. So, anyways, basic economic concept, and libertarians, if they know their stuff, this is how they will defend. This is how they will answer the question that will come to them of don't we need roads? Don't we need some government? If they don't know their economics, then they'll just sound stupid, and they really will start to tend in their ideology, if they're consistent, towards more of an anarchist uh, principle. So there you go. Oh, was I? I don't think I was sharing. You got
No,
to tell me
now
these
you are.
things.
I
Okay,
know
now
you're
I am.
supposed to be
There you go.
sharing something.
I was trying. All right, I didn't add it to the stage. I shared, but I didn't add it. John always does these. Basically,
Yeah.
there you go. There's the quadrant. You've got private, common, public, and club goods, and it's all about rivalry versus excludability.
To kind of get into the national park example, I think Trump proposed charging more for um, non-American citizens to get into national parks. What's your opinion on that? That was kind of an interesting proposal on his end.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think
Hmm.
that it makes total sense for
Yeah,
citizens to be subsidized. I mean, we should get free access, really.
yeah, I would agree.
But yeah, absolutely. I have no problem
Hmm.
with that in principle or in practice.
Yeah,
I mean, there might be some externalities or
sure.
some unintended side effects. I don't really know. I haven't thought through the whole issue,
Hmm.
but yeah, I got no
Yeah,
problem with that in principle. Certainly,
charge them
can't
double
think of
for each
anything.
person. Good with me.
Exactly. Also, it's kind of annoying when you have all these French
Dude.
Canadians and Asians, and
Oh yeah.
not to be racist, but they're just different, and they can be
Yeah.
annoying.
They got to put up the signs to tell you not to stand on the toilets. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Double the
Price
price
of
at
minimum.
minimum.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so let me keep sharing my screen here, but I'm gonna share something else. Alrighty. Let's see. Can you see it? Nope, I didn't add it. There we go. All right. So this is my works cited. So this is the collection of over the last several years, all of the different studies that I've done that pertain to the topics we cover on this show: church history, philosophy, and theology. And so I thought it'd be helpful to kind of go through some of my favorites and where I would start. We're not going to go through all this for sure, but just some resources that I think are extremely accessible and just if you are interested in these things at all, absolutely worth looking into. Um, so let's create two categories. Let's just add a tab here for now. And so or let's do three actually. So we'll do theology, we'll do philosophy, and we will do church history. Let's actually start with history because I think that's one of the most accessible topics to jump into in general, and it's kind of and it's really is an entry point to both of these, especially if you do the right kind of church history, where it's more of a history of ideas. Um, and you got to start here with Ryan Reeves. So let me pull maybe a link in here. But if you just type in Ryan Reeves on YouTube, then his channel is just a gold mine of lectures. They're all about 30 minutes long. They're designed for YouTube, so it's not like sometimes you'll see lectures where it's just a professor standing in front of a whiteboard talking to an actual class. No, these are lectures delivered to a nice microphone with nice slides done in a YouTube friendly way. It's clearly they're clearly college lecture notes from what I can tell, but just delivered in a monologue format and edited for YouTube. So very consumable and really good. Christian, you've watched some of his videos, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I kind of forget
Like
who Ryan Reeves is.
I remember on the Halloween episode,
Oh
the
yeah.
history of Halloween.
Hmm.
That was one of his videos.
Yeah.
So we've even done one of his videos on this show. Highly recommend that. Let me just go ahead and show you. I'll go to his YouTube channel so you can see what it's like. He has at least 4 complete lectures or classes, full college courses. Sorry, switching screens is kind of a pain here. All right. Oh, that's us. So let's see. Ryan Reeves. All right. Yep, we've got the Crusades. So his channel looks like this. And if you just go to his playlists, so he's got a lot of great content. He'll do some more topical things now. But if you go to his playlist, he used to put out full classes. And so he's got, he's got some biographies. He's just shorter. Well, they're not actually short videos, but they are just more topical or specific people that he's going into. But he has a complete class on Lewis and Tolkien, which is great. That one was actually just a recording of him talking lecture style to some students, so a little bit of different style, but it was a good class. It was very interesting. I learned some things, even though I'd studied Tolkien and Lewis quite a bit before watching this. It did have some good stuff. He's not a huge fan of the movies, which kind of bothered me because I am. I guess I see the issues, but even the things that he calls out, I don't necessarily see as being issues. So I didn't agree with all of his opinions, but the actual class was good. But where he really shines is this class is fantastic. This is Church History 1. It is just a Church History 1 full semester worth of classes for your first semester of Church History. Excellent playlist. Watch that entire thing, 57 videos. It's really, really good. And then he also has one that picks up at the Reformation, so Renaissance and modern history, 40 episodes. So watch all of that. That would be like the second semester of church history. And if you get those two, you've basically done a year's worth of seminary church history classes. However, if you want to do a deep dive, this was my favorite of all of his. This is Luther and Calvin, where he just contrasts and compares Luther and Calvin's theology, their life stories, and really, really good. That was the most interesting of his lecture series that I did. So, but if you want the survey of, from early church history all the way to the modern day, survey, first year seminary class, do this early medieval church history and followed by Renaissance and modern history. Really good resource. Cannot recommend that enough. All right. So then let's go back. So a first place to start on the theology side. I guess we should go in order here. Actually, we'll do philosophy because I have one in mind for that. I'll think about theology in a second. Philosophy, I would actually start with this one right here, Ron Nash's History of Philosophy of Christian Thought. Let me get a link for that. But this is where I would start for philosophy as a Christian. It's just a great survey course. goes all the way through the history of philosophy, starting with the very first philosopher. Which, by the way, do you know we can actually pinpoint the date that philosophy basically was invented? Um, and although I do not remember the exact date,
Oh man,
do you
come
happen
on.
to know? Well, we can look it up real quick.
Yeah.
But can you guess why we have that exact date and what happened on that day?
Mm, no, sir.
All right, let me get the details here.
All right. No, I'm
Um,
curious now.
yep. All right. So the date is uh, May 28th, 585 BC. Um, and what happened, and the reason we can validate this exact date, and probably down to the time, is that is the date when an eclipse occurred, as predicted by Thales of Miletus. And that's considered the birth of philosophy because philosophy and what we call science nowadays used to be more of one thing, and the broader category was considered philosophy. And he predicted it using a scientific and philosophical method that was, so he made a prediction and then it came true. And so we see that as being the first real instance of this type of method being applied successfully. So just a little tidbit of history, but I think that's really cool.
Oh, that is neat.
So yeah, Thales of Miletus in May 28th, 585 BC. So then let's see. So I would recommend Ron Nash's. Let me go back to the works site. It'll remove this from the screen. Share again. So yeah, Ron Nash, History of Philosophy and Christian Thought. I think I have a link here. So you can you see my screen?
No,
Oh, I forgot to add it to the stage. There we go.
there you go.
It's got to be a simpler way to do this.
Hmm.
Let me find a link. Biblicaltraining.org um, is the overall link. If I click on this, will it? Is it sharing? Is it still sharing the Google Doc?
Yes.
Probably is. All right, let me stop that again. All right, so now you see biblical training. Oh no, you don't see it still. Add it to the stage. Now you see it. Biblicaltraining.org. This is what it looks like. You can go to their classes, and they've got, you can see Old Testament, New Testament, a bunch of different categories of classes. But if you go to church history, oh no, these are also good. I'm taking this guy's classes right now. But the one, philosophy, there we go. Philosophy. This guy, Ron Nash. So he has, oh, I didn't even, this is new. I don't think,
Hmm.
that might be a new class.
Now, is this all free, or is
This is
this
all free. This is
okay?
all free. Um, or let's say, you know what? These are classes. That's why. I want courses. I think they categorize it differently. Let's see. If I go to the academy. Um, I could sign in, but I'm trying to do this without signing in. There we go. Not the best interface. It's better on the phone. Um, is there a search option? Here we go. Ron Nash. There we go. This guy. So he has, yes,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
history of philosophy. He also has a Christian ethics class. He also has a apologetics class, which is good. I took that one too. But this one, it's really a pretty short class. It's only 19, yeah, about 20 hours of audio, and really excellent. Just goes through, he goes through Miletus, as I was saying. He goes through Heraclitus, a bunch of different just early like pre-Socratic philosophers, and then goes into dualism, rationalism. He even talks some about possible worlds. Spends a lot more time than a lot of his classes on some of the early stuff. Goes through Aquinas. Um, really breezes over some of the more modern stuff, so it's not the best class for that. For that, I have another resource. Um, all right, so hopefully you got this. Excellent resource, biblicaltraining.org. Look up Ron Nash, create a free account. You get access to all these classes and a bunch of just great professors. They are pooled from a bunch of different colleges, so it's not all from one institution, but they're all just free and available on biblicaltraining.org. All righty. Reform Reader Guide. Who is Ken Gentry? I'm not familiar with that. Did you see him on there?
He put that up quite a while ago.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So let's see. That the other one that I would do, I share again. I'm just going to share the window. There we go. Yes, I can share. Yeah, if I share this window, now you can see Inception there, but I'm going to pull out StreamYard. Actually, I'll leave it in. But if I go here, there you go. Now you can see we're excited. Here you see the Institute. Okay, you can see everything now, right? You can see YouTube. Okay, that'll work. So I can just stay here. So then what I'd recommend for some of the more modern philosophers in a very cursory summary style is this guy, Paul Strathern. He has a lot of philosopher in 90-minute books, and more like podcasts almost. They all follow a very similar formula, but they're actually very engaging. Paul is very witty and humorous. He has got away with words, and just a real character. Probably an atheist, from what I can tell. He's very snarky about some of this stuff, but when you're studying philosophy, that's fine. So like his thing on, he's got one on Aquinas, and he has one on or Saint Thomas, I should say, I suppose. He has one on Aquinas, and he has one on Augustine, and they're both quite funny. He's just poking fun at them in a not so charitable way, but it is entertaining. So these are great. This is how I first learned about Nietzsche before actually reading his works, and this was a great little introduction. Stuff on these guys isn't all that enlightening, but it does help in a cursory way. Wittgenstein is very helpful. Anyways, it just gives you a brief overview of some of these different guys, and it's all great. And there's plenty more besides this. So I really recommend Paul Strathern's books. I can show you what they look like. I think I'm spelling that right. Yeah, so he'll have like Socrates in 90 minutes, Kant in 90 minutes, Hegel in 90 minutes. So this is what they look like. It's not very clear, but there you go. Yeah, they're all great. You can find those on Audible. It's probably too expensive for what it is for 90 minutes to pay for something, or you use a credit on Audible, but there are other ways to access them. You can find them on Libby or some of the library apps that allow you to check stuff out, audiobooks from the library. So anyways, definitely recommend those. So I'll add that to the philosophy intro. Let's see if that's how he spells his name. Looks right. All right. Now theology. Where would I start with theology? Theology is tougher because there are just so many different categories in theology. Really, I guess if you are starting, um, like you're truly beginner, then I'd probably start with something like C.S. Lewis,
It's a good
and
one.
Mere Christianity is just a great place to start. It gives you a good overview of Christian theology. He goes the first section of Mere Christianity is basically kind of the first step method in classical apologetics, where you're showing that there is a God. Um, and then he does describe why he thinks it's the Christian God, and then he goes into more Christian theology in detail. Not detail, in overview, but even still, he goes into some of the core elements of Christianity and just defining them in a way that is acceptable to pretty much everyone. It's mere Christianity. It's not denominational Christianity. It's not a specific faith within Christianity, but it's the Christianity, that the tenets that we can all people that call themselves Christians correctly. So not Mormons, not Jehovah's Witnesses, but all Christians should be able to agree on. And Lewis sent it out to a Catholic, to a Methodist. He sent it out to a number of his friends because he was Anglican, and just asked for their just to review it and see if there's anything that they would change. And they said they would emphasize some things differently from their perspective, but overall they agree with everything that he said. And that's the kind of book that it stood the test of time. It's a great overview of Christian theology. If you want to go deeper than that, then you really got to start picking which area of theology you want to study. And that's when I would recommend pretty much any one of the seminary resources that I have. So I'll just kind of list them out. Covenant Theological Seminary has a number of free lectures available. I can show you that link. Westminster Theological Seminary used to have free lectures, and there's still a way to get access to them if you use the Wayback Machine. But those are no longer normally available, so you have to kind of do some internet sleuthing. I do have the links to that on the first tab here of the Works Cited, so you're welcome to use that. So Covenant's good. Biblical Training has some some deep theological lectures as well. They've got several semesters of systematic theology. So you can go. Let's see, one of their professors. Let's see him. I have a lot of professors, but the one I'm taking. I think Stein has some on systematic theology. I'm not seeing him here. I don't know. Might be on this last tab. Nope, maybe I missed it. Anyways, there's a systematic theology class. There's a couple of those, and just several good deep dives into the various topics of Christian theology. Although that'll be from one perspective. I think the one I'm taking is from more of a Baptist perspective. So it's interesting. It's always good to know. Some of those things will have crossover with any faith, but many of them will not. So you kind of also got to pick your brand, so to speak. Biblical training.org will have some good ones. Covenant, I'll show you Covenants. And these are all free, completely free to access. Westminster, this is what I'm saying. You got to use the web.archive.org, which is also known as the Wayback Machine, which allows you to look at the internet before they change it. Basically, they archive the internet in snapshots. Essentially, they just kind of go through. They have little web crawlers that go and take snapshots and will download things And so that you can actually still access some of the old recordings that are no longer available, but if you go here, you can actually find them on Westminster Theological Seminary's website. And there were about 10 really solid classes. And, Westminster is a cool historic seminary. All right, here's Covenant. Yeah, let's click on that. Bunch of good classes. So they have a church history class as well. They have one for ancient to medieval, and then one for the Reformation and beyond. These are kind of they're very cursory and they're kind of propaganda. So Ryan Reeves, who I was recommending earlier, is very even-handed, very fair. He's a Protestant, but he's very fair towards Catholics. These are not going to be so much so, and even the biblicaltraining.org church history classes were also not fair to Catholics at all. So that's something to keep in mind. You will often get, when studying history, a particular perspective, and it's just something to be aware of. However, if you are Presbyterian or even Reformed Baptist, if you're just Reformed at all, this class is fantastic, a class on the Westminster Confession of Faith. They go through chapter by chapter, and this is the confession that basically is the condensation of all the different European continental creeds that were being formed, as well as the English creeds, and then it all just basically gets condensed into the Westminster Confession of Faith. And this is essentially the confession, or the template for the confession that's used going forward for most of the Reformed faith, and certainly in the United States, the Reformed faiths, both Baptist and Presbyterian. The Baptists will follow what they call the London Baptist Confession, but it's essentially the Westminster Confession with a couple words changed around things like baptism. I think there's about 2 chapters that have serious changes, but otherwise it's going to be very, very similar. So excellent class if you want to understand the Reformed faith. A class that I would really recommend here on Covenant Theological Seminary is, let's see, I'll find it quickly. It's really, really good. This one right here, New Testament, History, and Theology. So I clicked on it because of the history element, but what I found is that it really was much less history and much more basically an analysis and critique of, but an appreciative critique of a lot of the modern methods of doing New Testament study, and like how critical theory has infiltrated seminaries, and how theology lectures are now being done in this postmodern way, with all these postmodern assumptions. And you can't just throw it out completely, because they actually have some good points to start out with, but then they just take it too far and they assume too much. And this was just an excellent class, going through that in a very critical way, but a way that wasn't unfair at all. Really, really good. One of the best ones I've taken on this subject, and the professor was very gifted. He also has a really short class, just sort of a mini lecture series on archaeology, because he's done some archaeology work, and that was really interesting as well. Let's see if we can find that here. David Chapman. If I click on him, not a very good interface, but if there was a way to click on him, it would take me to all of his classes, and he's the same one that teaches that archaeology class, that was cool. We still have 15 people sticking it out, so I don't know if it's the same people the whole time, but I'm glad to. I'm really glad to share these things. I think it's really interesting, and I mean, I study this stuff because I enjoy it, but also because I want to collect these resources and share them. I mean, that's why I put together this works cited. It's not just to brag about what I've studied, but it's because part of the point is to pool valuable resources so that other people can use them. So on that note, we should go to a more Catholic option, since I've done a bunch of Protestants now. So this is a recent one. I've been looking for a good Catholic resource for a while, and stumbled upon the Institute of Catholic Culture. And it's exactly what I was looking for. I'd like to find a couple more, because you always will get these sort of biases if you just go from one. But this one really, it's got plenty to go off of. Plenty that it would keep me occupied for months, if not a couple years. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's cool. You'll have to send me the link.
I absolutely will, yeah. Let me go to the complete courses here. So, I mean, it's so good. They've got a patristics class, which I am taking the not 102. I think it's maybe their patristics 101. Yeah, this one right here, the Apostolic and Ante-Nicene Fathers. So it just goes through. This is a class that I've never seen a Protestant seminary offer. We just kind of wrap it into our church history classes, and so it's extremely summary in summary fashion. It does not go in detail at all. Whereas this one will actually have a lecture on each of the different patristics, and this is just going up to Nicaea, and then they have a whole class for the ones after Nicaea. So it's so much more detail in terms of the church history, in terms of the church fathers, than you will get in a Protestant seminary. So really, really valuable resource here. They also have some church history classes. Now, here's the thing that I found, and they've got theology ones as well. So if you want to do a theology class and philosophy, Catholics tend to be more philosophically well-read than Protestants. So really valuable. And they go through, they've got classes on the catechisms, a bunch of classes. Good teachers, however, tend to be pretty biased. And this is something that I've noticed just in general with Catholics, not all Catholics, but a lot of Catholics that haven't really ever had serious conversations with Protestants. They just sort of assume that they're the oldest and the best, and there's anyone else is just sort of self-deceived, and you kind of get that vibe from some of these guys as well. It definitely seems very patronizing to Protestants and very self-assured, which is fine. It's a Catholic institution, but also very biased and unfairly so in the church history side, because I know something about church history, and so I can't say where there's bias when they're talking about the patristics about someone that I haven't necessarily studied otherwise. But then when it comes to a church history topic that I do know something about, then I can tell when they're being very unfair when there's another side. And so just keep that in mind. But it is still helpful, in my opinion, to get that different perspective, and then you can balance it out on your own. So I would highly recommend this resource. I'll copy that in there as well. I posted the link, by the way, to this whole Google Doc in the chat, so you can go back and look at that.
I think for people who maybe aren't the biggest readers or anything, I think the best way to learn is just to attend a variety of services as well. Attend a Lutheran service, go to a Baptist service, go to a Catholic mass, try different things, see what, I don't know, speaks to you in a sense.
Yeah, I think that gives you a good exposure.
Mm-hmm. And also kind of develops more thought, more questions in your own mind as well, and kind of a basis of what you're curious about, what you want to study as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. You probably aren't going to get much deep theology just going to the services, and that's the thing. Really, you're not supposed to. Protestant churches tend to be a little bit, especially like Presbyterian churches, tend to be more academic in their services. Like they'll have long sermons, and they really go into the theology, and I can appreciate that. But really, a sermon is not supposed to be a lecture. It's supposed to be like a refreshment. It's supposed to be just drinking from the water of Scripture, and I think that very often Protestants in general, and certainly even Presbyterians, will often not emphasize the Lord's Supper enough, or the Eucharist, and the sermon becomes the most important focal point of the service, and there's a reason for that, right? Protestants tend to emphasize the word. That's why we have the pulpit in the center. It's not because we idolize the pastor. It's because the word is what we are emphasizing in a service, and we see that as being, the word made flesh, and so we emphasize Scripture at the center of the service, which is a way.
So that's what's kind of interesting about the differences is your guys is the.
Whereas the Catholics will emphasize the host, they'll emphasize the Eucharist. And so they're both different ways of portraying Christ at the center of the service, but one is the word and one is the flesh, so to speak. So it's
kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And no, that's not a word concept fallacy. Some people will say that reading John that way as the word became flesh, and saying, oh, it's talking about scripture is like a word concept fallacy. And
Yeah.
there's some legitimacy there. It is, when it says the word, it's not necessarily referring to like the book that you're holding in terms of the Bible, but um, the word, the logos that's the Greek word that's being used there, that logos made flesh does have a strong relation to scripture, this concept of God breathes scripture. And so I don't think that it's fallacious to um, equate the two in some sense.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that um, is probably where I would start with the theology. If you are really new to this or just haven't read Mere Christianity, then definitely go read it, and then dive into some of these resources and look into the topics that interest you more. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I would start, and then from there, just be directed by your interests. Uh, all of these are available to you. These are just what I've done and what I found really interested in, and I'd be happy to talk through more. If you have any questions, you're welcome to send us an email at regardingdoubt@gmail.com. Um, and I can provide some further recommendations. But I think if you just start there, you'll find something that interests you, and then you can come here for more ideas if you're interested. But you'll start to get a self-directed um, uh, passion, and that's the idea. I will say a few more things on the philosophy side, because there are some really, these will get you some of the Christian philosophers and some of the philosophical names, but there are some really good YouTube resources that are very accessible and will help you with some of the more modern philosophy, which is actually quite different. And this is the stuff that Jay Dyer talks about all the time, which I do actually understand, but I think a lot of his audience just does not. Um, well, clearly they don't from the comments they leave, but Jay has a pretty good understanding of it, but his audience I don't think does. Um, but the more modern philosophy, let's see, where is it? Um, oh, by the way, if you want another good church history, Carl Trueman has a great little Reformation course. It mostly focuses on Luther, but it's all available free on YouTube. There's a link here. Um, but then, another good philosophy one from a Christian perspective is Peter Kraft, who's a rather famous Thomist, and he's written, I think, sort of a simplified version of the Summa Theologia. He's rewritten, yeah, some more consumable versions of Aquinas' writings, and he's got this 12-part lecture series on going through a bunch of different philosophers, and he contrasts them. I'll even show you what this looks like. It's really good. Um, Yeah, here it is. He goes through, see, like Nietzsche versus Heidegger, Augustine versus Sartre, Kierkegaard versus Hegel. So these just really cool. It's a really uh, well thought out way of describing these philosophers' ideas, because philosophy is always a conversation. And so this isn't the only way that you could portray them. You could certainly go individually through them, and you could even group them in other ways. They will talk to each other beyond simply these pairings. But this is a helpful way of looking at it. So really cool. Definitely recommend Peter Kraft's lectures, and they're put on by Word on Fire, which is Bishop Robert
Robert
Barron's
Barron, that's
organization.
his,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So really, really good Catholic resource. All right, so then for more secular philosophy, Jeffrey Kaplan has an excellent YouTube channel, and yeah, he's got several complete courses. And if you're interested in like linguistic philosophy and analytic philosophy, which is pretty cool, um, I say that it's cool to understand because it sounds very erudite. It's actually pretty silly in a lot of ways, but it's what all the philosophers are talking about nowadays. It is like, if you want to do philosophy now, you have to understand linguistic philosophy and what they call analytic philosophy. Um, and I want to do a video in the future going over why I think so much of it is just bunk. Um, but we'll have to save that for another time. It's a little bit dense, but it's um, It would be cool. We'll have to do a live stream in the future. But anyway, so this class is a great little intro class. It starts with Descartes. He's got about 6 lectures on Descartes, and then just goes through a bunch of different concepts on the philosophy of the mind. That's one of his lectures. But if you go to his just YouTube channel in general, he's a very fun professor. He teaches, I think, at in North Carolina. I forget which university, but yeah, he's a North Carolina professor. And if you go to his playlists, this one is great. The Philosophy of Language, excellent. It's only about, I don't know, 8 lectures long. Really, really good. This is a great intro one, and just even if you just do the first 6 on Descartes, he basically goes through the entire Descartes' Meditations, which is not a very long book, but it's very dense. And you could just substitute his first 6 lectures for reading it. You don't have to read it after you watch those, and you will understand a probably one of the most important works of modern philosophy. So, excellent use of your time. This is a good lecture series as well, going through the mind. Actually, I think these videos I think are actually contained within these 20. So I think you're good there. This is probably just skipping the Descartes stuff. And then I'm trying to think if there's any others here that I've done. He's got some interesting stuff on law. I haven't actually watched those series yet. But he's got an ethics class as well. I think he's got a pretty complete ethics, intro to ethics, 27. So being ethical is not very interesting to me, but no, I will actually go ahead and watch that at some point. I think I took an ethics class in college, so I'm familiar with some of those, but it'd be interesting to review them now that I know all these philosophers from their more philosophical writings, and then to see how their philosophies impacted their ethics, because studying a philosopher's ethics versus studying their metaphysics is there's some interplay, but they're very distinct subjects. So, anyways, great resource. Other YouTube channels, Gregory Sadler has. These are a little bit denser, a little bit harder to consume, but still a good place to go. He's got some interesting ones on. I don't think he's a Christian. He used to be a Christian. I think he used to be a Catholic. But like many people that study philosophy, he fell away. Let that be a warning to you. I think he may have come back, but he certainly fell away from Catholicism. I don't know where he currently stands, but I get the sense that he's probably not very devout. But he's got some just tons and tons of lectures. And he's got some on Christian philosophers. He's got great stuff on Augustine, great stuff on the guy who wrote the ontological argument, which I'm blanking on his name, Anselm's philosophy. So just too much to consume, but they're good, and many of them are bite-sized. Many of them are just like he'll go over one of Augustine's City of God chapters in 10 minutes. So you can, if there's a particular chapter that someone recommends that you read, and you'd rather not read it, you can just go and watch his lecture, and then you go back and read it, and then you'll be all the wiser for it. We've already talked about Ryan Reeves. I like Scholastic Answers as well.
I think Scholastic Answers is a little hard to consume sometimes. It gets very.
It is. It's more of a test of how well you're doing with your other studies to see if you actually can follow. But even then, it's very Thomistic. It's very scholastic, as the name would imply, and you don't have to understand scholasticism to understand the rest of philosophy. You really don't have to understand scholasticism to understand theology in general. You might be better off if you aren't immersed in that world in some sense. So, it is what it is. But if you like scholastic studies, then he's a reliable resource, I have found. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great overview.
Well done.
So yeah, I'll stop sharing now. But any questions from the chat or Christian? Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. Just if you're curious about it, go to church. I think that's my biggest piece of advice I can give or takeaway. Just go and experience it in person. Develop your thoughts and your questions, and then do your research based on that. I think that's the best start. And also, pick the brains of your friends who go to church as well. See what they got to say.
Yep. Talk to people that disagree with you. Talk to people that agree with you, and
Yeah,
figure out where you disagree, because those can be really interesting conversations.
absolutely.
Um, that's yeah. I mean, that's you'll learn so much
Hmm.
by having real, deep, not gotcha based conversations with people that disagree with you. That's where so much learning happens.
Even when you do attend a service, go talk to the pastor or the priest. Go pick their brain
Hmm.
too. See what they got to say.
Absolutely.
Hmm. That's what they're there to do.
Absolutely. You know, I just realized I've been talking this whole time. I think I just took my first sip of my bourbon, which is
Yeah,
very unusual for this show. Normally, I've noticed I have a tick where when I finish a sentence or finish a thought
take a
and
drink.
then ready to turn it over to you or John,
Hmm.
that's when I start taking, taking
Yeah.
a drink. So, um, yeah, sometimes it can end up leading to a lot more consumption than I intended. Um, all right, so let's see. I haven't even proofread these, but
Oh,
let's
also,
start.
yeah, just read the Bible. That's a good start too. I know there's multiple ways of going about that, but I don't think just going from the Old Testament to the New Testament just straight through is the most efficient or interesting method of doing it. But I know there's multiple versions of way to break down the Bible as far as reading it. So that's a
Yeah,
good start too.
yeah. I'd recommend starting. So it depends on your interest, but I'd recommend if you want to study Jesus, if you don't know your Gospels, it's a good idea to get familiar with the person of Jesus. Probably start with the Gospel of John. It's one of the
Hmm.
simplest. John wrote in a way that is very modern in a sense. He uses really a new style of Greek prose. I don't know if he invented it, but it's different from the way that the other writers wrote. He's very short. They're very short sentences, but very deep. And so his brevity and his depth is extremely admirable and modern in a sense. And so it's poetic, but it's beautiful.
Hmm.
It's poetic, but it's simple.
Yeah.
So both beautiful and simple. And so Gospel of John is probably where I'd recommend if you want to start with the Gospels and you don't know your Gospel stories. If you're interested in history, then obviously the Old Testament books of history are a great place to start. They're very engaging, reading about David and all these different kings and these just legends of history um, is really good, and it's helpful in knowing your Old Testament will help you in knowing the New Testament as well. If you are interested in theology and or philosophy, then Romans is the place to go.
Hmm.
So much of um, theological discussion centers around ideas that Paul examines in Romans. Things like Christian liberty, freedom in Christ, all these ethical questions about what you should and shouldn't do. Go to Romans, submitting to authority, Romans 13. Um, the Jewish question, Romans 5 and 7, I think, are both address that. 5 will address um, original sin. So you get a bunch of great theology in Romans. You also get some good philosophy as well. Romans 1 talking about the heavens declaring, well, I mean, it's a psalm, but Romans 1 talking about how people are left without excuse for just the clearness of God's creation, leaving them condemned. Uh, so you'll see philosophy in Romans as well. So definitely recommend that
Yeah.
if that's where you're at in terms of your biblical journey. I spent a whole year just studying Romans and greatly benefited from it. It was
Yeah.
not wasted at all. I
Another
just yeah, I just read through it over and over.
another good resource from the Catholic perspective. I've gone through it once already, but I'm listening to it all over again. If you're not much into reading, Father Mike Schmitz's Bible in a Year podcast is a very
Mm.
good resource as well.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I like, I like him. Um,
My perspective is I don't like listening to music when I drive. I view my vehicle as a university on wheels, so use that time to learn and not just listen to secular garbage music. So yeah, develop your brain while you drive. Do something productive while you're sitting there. So
Fair enough. Yeah,
hmm
yeah. I have to kind of train myself to be okay just wasting time sometimes because I'm often
sure,
consuming content. I can get little overwhelmed sometimes. But
Hmm.
so it is important to take those breaks, and music is uplifting. I realize
Yeah.
so often when I'm not listening to music, I'm much more depressed. And then all of a sudden, I'll listen to music because I'm like working out. That's one time where I
Hmm.
generally can't listen to a theology lecture while working out. It
Yeah.
just doesn't get me motivated the same
Hmm.
way. If I'm going on a slow run, maybe, but uh, that's one of those times where I will just, I'm already being productive. I'm already working out, and so I'll listen to music.
Hmm.
And then I realize how much I love music and how I need to
No,
listen to more of this,
music's
just
great, man.
as a way,
Yeah.
really as a form of enrichment. So
Hmm.
don't skimp on your music,
No.
but yes, car rides are a
Yeah.
great time to
That
listen to
that's
this
just
stuff.
my perspective. That's my opinion on it. I use
I
my
totally agree.
vehicle to try to learn, not just. But yeah, I do enjoy my music as well. Absolutely. But yeah.
Former Grade says he'll check out the biblical training site. Recommend that for sure. Covenant theology is I like even better in some respects. I've listened to more of their lectures, but they're both really good. Yeah, well, the biblical train has some unique ones that Covenant doesn't have. So, yeah, both really good options. I saw this earlier. So, Gorman was reading Fox's Book of Martyrs. Good resource, not great history. From what I understand, I mean, it's probably going to be mostly propaganda. Um, Probably anti-Catholic and somewhat suspect in terms of the actual um, uh, legitimacy of the stories. Um, they're more just legends. Still good to know. It's always good to know what the legends are because the legends reveal a certain amount of um, truth even in legend, and so that can be helpful. Like knowing the legend of Thermopylae and the 300 by just watching the movie 300 is about as good as knowing the story. I mean, 300 is basically just a version of Herodotus's account of the events, and you could also study what actually happened, quote unquote, as if we know exactly. But really, understanding the legend gives you pretty much enough as long as you understand that it is legend. Uh, I think Fox's Book of Martyrs is kind of like that. I haven't read it in its entirety. I really haven't read much. I think I started it and didn't get very far. But if it piques your interest in church history, fantastic. And I mean, it's a classic book, so you're always going to benefit from reading it. And I would, yeah, I mean, from there, like I said, I jump into the Ryan Reeves lectures. They're just so good. If you like church history, he will get you more and more into it. So carry on. Um, Philosophize This is a great podcast series I've enjoyed also. Cool, cool. Quick overviews of a bunch of philosophers. Okay, yeah, nice. Good to know. I really enjoy Alex O'Connor's channel as well. Um, he has a solid understanding of all of these topics. He's clearly taken his classes and his philosophy studies seriously. He's done a bunch of personal study as well, but he's clearly not just self-taught. He has actually been instructed as well, and so he has a very strong grasp on when he's talking about a topic. He knows something about it and he understands the conversation and where it fits in the broader conversation of philosophy. And that's what's so important when you're talking about philosophy. If you're just talking about a particular philosopher's ideas in isolation, it's not going to mean that much, and your opinion is probably it just won't have much bearing because philosophy has to take place in the canon. It's got to take place in the conversation, which I think theology should as well. If you're talking theology concepts that are completely out of left field and not really part of the broader theological conversation that's been going on since the death and resurrection of Christ, then you're out of step, and you really need to immerse yourself in the canon and figure out where your ideas fit within there. Um, so, alrighty. I don't have anything else. Christian, you got anything else?
No.
Your final thoughts?
No. I think that's it, man.
Well, good stuff. Thanks, guys, for being here
Yeah.
with us. We will be streaming later this week. That's the plan. We haven't heard confirmation on the time. Possibly Thursday, so tentatively mark your calendars, but we'll see. But yeah, we'll. John is traveling today, but once he's back in his normal studio, then we'll try to get you another one of these later this week. I think we've got a good topic picked out. I think it'll be fun. I'm actually looking forward to it quite a bit.
We might be talking about Nick Fuentes, maybe.
I think that's the
Appears to
plan.
be.
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
the whole saga. What I'd like to do is go through the yeah, Pierce Morgan and Nick, and then Crowder and Nick,
Okay.
And then Crowder goes back on Pierce Morgan to critique his interview with Nick.
Mm.
You know,
I'll have to watch that.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of good fodder. Yeah, I put that in
Mhm.
the chat. It's good stuff. It's it actually kind of made me want to start watching Crowder again. I kind of
I
stopped.
I
I
used to watch
stopped
him a
after he got
lot.
divorced. I used to
I used
too,
to watch
and
him a
I
lot back
liked
in the
him.
day, but
And
kind
I
of just got annoying.
always, yeah, well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, he was annoying. He had
Mhm.
certain tendencies and certain blind spots that were just so obviously blind spots. Where I'm like, Crowder, why don't you get this? Um, and yeah, maybe he still sucks. See, I have no idea. He might still suck, but he all you. I knew that he was being authentic. That's one thing that I don't think you can accuse Crowder, at least in my experience, from what I could tell, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. He never seemed inauthentic. He really just seemed dumb sometimes. He was just completely missing the forest for the trees. Um, so, anyways, I'm curious to watch more of his stuff because I
Yeah.
thought his interview with Pierce was pretty good and reminded me of some of the reasons why I liked Crowder. He always like his change my mind segments, never particularly enlightening conversations, but the heart behind them was always good.
Mhm.
Unedited, unfiltered conversations about topics where you disagree. Those were fun, and again, Crowder's not the best debater. He's not even the clearest thinker. His logic isn't always sound. It's often a little off. It's kind of just a regurgitation of talking points in an order that can work, but isn't the most. It's rarely going to convince. But again, the heart behind those segments were always good, and he really does have a heart for that type of conversation, and I really appreciate that. So he actually takes time to listen and try to understand another person's perspectives. What we got? He brags too much. Yeah, well, of course. Yes, he definitely is his sees himself as a victim, which is very annoying for someone trying to promote masculinity and whatnot. Um, yeah. And he also didn't. He, the whole thing with the Daily Wire was frustrating too because he had a point, but he took it too far and he didn't really. I don't know.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crowder is a bit of a character.
Mhm.
Um, it'll be interesting. Oh,
Oh, yeah, that'll be
yeah,
interesting too.
yeah.
I think Nick even had some comments on that on one of his shows
Huh.
as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to watch more Nick. I mean, it feels like I have to. I basically avoided watching any Nick for until this year, because I was just not really interested in what he had to say.
Hmm.
Uh, I think we all now have to
I
at
mean,
least engage with him. He's just too popular not
I
to.
don't I don't watch him religiously, but I'm maybe like once or twice a week, and he's pretty entertaining. Not gonna lie,
He is entertaining.
he's
That
very
I will
entertaining.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes in the wrong way, but
Hmm.
he is entertaining.
Yeah.
If you like gay porn. Uh,
Of
uh,
course, you'd be the one to bring that up.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fair.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you later this week. And if not, then we'll see you hopefully next Tuesday. Although Christmas week could be a little bit could throw our schedules off, but we'll try to let you know ahead of time if there's any change. So thanks, guys. God bless.